Elizabeth Taylor was one of Hollywood's most iconic and outspoken stars. Elizabeth Taylor built her legacy on passion, honesty, and emotional intensity. She never believed in pretending, on screen or off. And when it came to working with other actors, she had strong opinions. Some collaborations worked beautifully, others didn't. Here are 5 actors Elizabeth Taylor reportedly found difficult to work with, and why. One of the most complicated relationships in her life was with Richard Burton. Their story is legendary. 2 powerful personalities drawn together by intense chemistry, both on and off screen. When they worked together in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, their performances felt raw, almost uncomfortably real. That's because much of that tension came from real life. Burton was deeply emotional, often unpredictable, and carried a larger-than-life presence into every scene. Taylor matched that intensity, but their dynamic quickly became volatile. Their arguments didn't stop when the cameras turned off. In fact, those emotional clashes often fueled their performances, creating something extraordinary for audiences but exhausting for them personally. Taylor admired Burton's talent, but she struggled with the instability that came with it. He could be passionate one moment and distant the next, making it difficult to maintain consistency. Their relationship became a cycle of attraction and conflict, collaboration and confrontation. While they created unforgettable work together, it came at a personal cost. For Taylor, working with Burton wasn't just acting, it was living through emotional extremes over and over again. There were also moments when their personal relationship blurred the lines between performance and reality so deeply that it became hard to separate the two. Scenes would sometimes carry unresolved emotions from off-camera arguments, making them feel heavier and more intense than intended. Taylor had to constantly manage not just her role, but her emotions as well. Despite all of this, she never denied that Burton brought out something unique in her as an actress. But that creative spark came with a level of chaos that she found difficult to sustain over time. Then there was Marlon Brando, a genius in the eyes of many, but a challenge in practice. Brando approached acting with a level of unpredictability that made him both fascinating and frustrating. He often changed lines, improvised during scenes, and relied heavily on instinct rather than structure. For Taylor, this created a major problem. She believed in preparation, in understanding the emotional flow of a scene and building it carefully. Brando disrupted that process. His spontaneity could create powerful moments, but also made it difficult for Taylor to anticipate his reactions. She had to stay constantly alert, adjusting her performance in real time. That kind of unpredictability required extra effort and focus, which she didn't always appreciate. Taylor respected his talent deeply. She knew he was one of the best, but she didn't agree with his lack of discipline. She believed that great acting didn't have to come at the expense of consistency. And with Brando, consistency was never guaranteed. That difference in philosophy created a gap between them that never fully closed. At times, this unpredictability also affected the pacing of scenes, forcing multiple retakes and adjustments that disrupted the overall flow of production. Taylor preferred efficiency and emotional continuity, but with Brando, every take could feel like starting over. While this occasionally led to brilliance, it also created frustration as the process became less about building something together and more about reacting to constant change. With Frank Sinatra, the issue wasn't unpredictability, it was control. Sinatra was a dominant personality who was used to leading every situation he was in. Whether it was music, film, or personal interactions, he carried himself with authority. Taylor, however, was not someone who followed. She had her own presence, her own confidence, and her own way of approaching scenes. When they worked together, this created an unspoken tension. Both actors had strong instincts and were used to being in charge of their performances. That led to moments where neither wanted to adjust, neither wanted to give ground. Scenes became subtle power struggles, not loud or dramatic, but noticeable. Taylor believed in balance, in sharing the space equally. But with Sinatra, that balance wasn't always there. He had a tendency to take control of the moment, and Taylor resisted that. She didn't like feeling overshadowed, and she refused to step back. This dynamic made their collaboration more challenging than it appeared on the surface. There were also instances where creative disagreements would slow down production, as both actors remained firm in their interpretations of a scene. While neither openly confronted the other, the tension was present in the atmosphere, influencing how scenes unfolded. For Taylor, this wasn't about ego, it was about fairness. She believed that a scene should belong to both actors, not be dominated by one. A different kind of frustration existed with Rock Hudson. Hudson was known for his charm, professionalism, and easygoing nature. He was reliable, consistent, and widely respected. But for Taylor, something was missing. She felt that his performances lacked emotional depth. While he delivered his lines well and maintained a steady presence, he didn't always bring the level of intensity that Taylor expected. She wanted vulnerability, risk, and emotional complexity, qualities that pushed a scene beyond the surface. Hudson's style, while polished, often stayed within a safe range. For Taylor, that created a limitation. She felt like she was giving more emotionally than she was receiving, which made the connection feel uneven. It wasn't about personality. Hudson was kind and professional, but about artistic alignment. Taylor needed more from her co-stars, and in this case, she didn't feel like she was getting it. This difference sometimes required Taylor to carry more of the emotional weight in their scenes, which added pressure to her performance. She had to find ways to elevate the moment on her own, compensating for what she felt was lacking in the dynamic. While Hudson's consistency was appreciated, it didn't challenge her in the way she preferred, leaving her wanting a deeper creative exchange. Finally, there was Montgomery Clift, whose situation was far more emotional than professional. Taylor shared a deep bond with Clift and cared about him deeply. He was incredibly talented, sensitive, and capable of delivering powerful performances. But he was also struggling with personal issues that affected his work. His emotional state could shift, his focus could waver, and his performances could become inconsistent. For Taylor, this was difficult. She wanted to support him as a friend, but she also needed stability as a professional. That balance was hard to maintain. Working with Clift required patience, understanding, and emotional strength. There were moments when his vulnerability created something beautiful on screen, but there were also moments when it made the process unpredictable. Taylor didn't resent him. She worried about him. But that concern came with its own challenges, especially when it began to affect the work itself. She often found herself navigating between compassion and professionalism, trying to protect both the film and her friend at the same time.